Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome back to the D1 Audible Cheat Sheets, where we continue with Chapter 16. When we talk about white winemaking, we're really talking about sensitivity. White wines don't have the same natural buffers as reds. There's no prolonged skin contact by default, no tannin structure to lean on, no margin for sloppiness with oxygen, solids, temperatures, or microbes. That's why this chapter exists. It's here to show you how seemingly small choices early on ripple all the way through aroma, texture, color, stability, price, and even market positioning. Take skin contact. In white winemaking, it's optional, and most of the time it's deliberately avoided. That's because the aromas and flavors we usually want in white wine live in the pulp, not the skins. Press early, keep things clean, protect the juice from oxygen, and you get purity, freshness, a smooth mouthfeel, and minimal color. That's the foundation for a huge proportion of the world's white wines, especially those designed to be drunk young. But skin contact becomes interesting when you want more than just clean fruit. Leaving juice on skins allows you to pull aroma compounds and their precursors, and just a whisper of tannin that gives texture. It's particularly effective with highly aromatic varieties like Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Viognier, Muscat, and Sauvignon Blanc, especially when oak isn't part of the picture and texture needs to come from somewhere else. Time and temperature are the levers here. An hour versus a day makes a big difference. Chilling the juice slows extraction, gives control, reduces oxidation, and lowers the risk of spontaneous fermentation. Push skin contact too far, especially with underripe fruit, and bitterness and coarse tannins quickly take over. That's why minimal or zero skin contact is usually preferred for early drinking wines, delicate styles, and inexpensive production where extra time, labor, and equipment are hard to justify. At the far end of that spectrum sit orange or amber wines. Here, white grapes are fermented on their skins like reds, extracting color, tannin, and a very different flavor profile altogether. These wines often lean towards dried fruit, herbs, hay, and nuts with noticeable phenolic grip. They're commonly associated with traditional or minimal intervention producers, ambient yeast, little or no temperature control, and very low additions of sulfur dioxide. Stylistically and philosophically, they're a world away from the clean fruit driven whites most students first learn about. Pressing decisions are just as revealing. Whole bunch pressing is about gentleness and protection. By pressing intact clusters, often under inert gas, oxidation is reduced and the juice comes out low in solids, tannin, and color. The stems create channels that help the juice drain without excessive pressure. The trade off is efficiency. Whole bunches take up space, presses fill faster, and hand harvesting becomes essential. That's why this approach is most common in small batch premium wines rather than large scale production. More commonly, grapes are destemmed and crushed. As soon as that happens, free run juice drains away. This juice is usually the purest fraction, lower in solids, tannin, and color, higher in acidity, and lower in pH. It's ideal for lighter bodied, very clean styles, but using only free run juice reduces volume, which has obvious cost implications. Pressed juice follows as pressure increases. Early press fractions can add body and texture and may be blended back in carefully. Later fractions with higher tannin, bitterness, and color are often discarded. This is one of the quiet balancing acts of white winemaking: purity versus volume, finesse versus structure. Hyperoxidation sounds counterintuitive, until you understand what it's trying to remove. By deliberately exposing must to oxygen before fermentation, the compounds that oxidize most readily are targeted, turn brown, and then precipitate during fermentation. The finished wine returns to normal color but is more resistant to oxidation later. It can also strip out some bitter compounds, particularly when fruit isn't perfectly ripe. This technique works best with less aromatic varieties like Chardonnay. It would be disastrous for something like Sauvignon Blanc if you wanted to preserve thiols and herbaceous freshness. It's not especially expensive in terms of equipment, but it does add an extra step that needs monitoring. Clarification of must is another area where style is shaped long before fermentation starts. Winemakers typically aim for somewhere between 0.5% and 2% solids. Very low solids favor clean, fruity aromas, which is why they suit inexpensive fresh styles. Slightly higher solids can add subtle astringency, texture, and broader fermentation aromas, which may be desirable in premium whites like Chardonnay. Push solids too high, though, and the risk increases. Reductive sulfur compounds can form, sometimes adding complexity, sometimes creating outright faults. At the other extreme, over clarifying the must can starve yeast of nutrients and lead to stuck fermentations, requiring nutrient additions later. There's no neutral choice here, only trade offs. Sedimentation is the most traditional clarification method. Chill the must, let gravity do the work, rack off the clear juice. It's simple, gentle, and equipment light, but it takes time, ties up tank space, and uses energy for chilling. That's why it's most often seen in small volume premium production. Flotation speeds the process by bubbling gas through the must so solids rise and can be skimmed off. It's quicker, can be continuous, doesn't require chilling, but needs fining agents and specialized equipment. Centrifugation is the fastest of all, continuous and labor efficient, but expensive to install and often increases oxygen exposure unless inert gas is used. Again, each method reflects scale, budget, and stylistic intent. Fermentation temperature and vessel choice are where white wines really start to declare themselves. Cool fermentations around 15 degrees Celsius preserve and enhance fruity esters and freshness. Warmer fermentations are chosen when fruitiness isn't the priority, often because oak influence or yeast health takes precedence. Stainless steel dominates fruity aromatic styles because temperature control and oxygen protection are straightforward. Concrete and old oak vats suit styles where texture matters more than overt fruit. Small oak barrels, especially for premium Chardonnay, bring cost and labor, but can deliver fuller body, deeper color, integrated oak character, and additional texture through increased lees contact. They also create blending options because each barrel behaves slightly differently. Aromatic varieties like Riesling generally avoid this route entirely to protect primary aromas. Malolactic conversion is one of the clearest stylistic forks in white wine making. It reduces acidity, raises pH, improves microbiological stability, and alters flavor. With Chardonnay, it's often a deliberate choice to add perceived complexity and soften structure. With aromatic varieties like Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc, it's usually avoided to preserve freshness and varietal character, even though these wines are naturally high in acidity. Acid and alcohol adjustments can still be made later if needed, but the decision around malolactic conversion fundamentally shapes the wine. Barrel maturation for white wines builds on the same theme. It's typically preserved for premium and super premium wines made from low aromatic whites, where texture and layered flavor development justify the cost. For aromatic grapes, oak flavors and slow oxidation often obscure what makes the variety distinctive. In inexpensive wines, barrels are simply too costly, so oak alternatives are used if any oak character is desired. Lees aging is one of the most powerful but subtle tools in white winemaking. It increases body, softens mouthfeel, protects the wine from oxygen, and can introduce low level reductive notes that some producers and consumers find appealing. Stirring the lees accelerates these effects. Traditional batonnage in barrel introduces oxygen each time the bung is removed, reducing reductive risk but also diminishing fruit. Modern systems allow lees to be agitated without opening the vessel, giving far greater control. All of this adds labor and cost, which is why extensive lees aging is rare in inexpensive wines but common in higher quality examples. By the time a white wine reaches blending, finishing, and packaging, most of its character has already been set. These final steps are about refining balance, ensuring stability, and protecting the style the winemaker has worked to create. That's why this chapter matters so much in D1. It shows you that white wine is not simpler than red, it's more exposed. Every choice is amplified. And once you understand that, white winemaking stops being a list of techniques and starts reading like a series of intentional decisions, each one leaving a fingerprint on the final wine. And that concludes chapter 16. I do hope this helps with your prep, and I'll see you in the next episode.